is the first in a series that we at eLearning intend to host over the next few months. The theme for this particular forum is Education Technology, and we're going to inspire, integrate, and transform. At eLearning, we sincerely believe that the use of technology in education and business in general is extremely important. There will be no modern 21st century economy without a digitally literate, tech-savvy, and highly educated workforce to take on the challenges that the future will pose. To become a more efficient and productive economy, reducing service delivery time, especially within our public sector institutions, we must start from the ground up and continue to make the necessary investments in appropriate technology in education. We must train and develop our young minds by infusing technology in the school systems. That's how our current students will become future leaders, thereby making our country more competitive in the global marketplace. Many of today's high-demand jobs were created in the last decade, according to the International Society for Technology in Education. As advances in technology drive globalization and digital transformation, teachers can help students acquire the necessary skills to succeed in the careers of the future. The COVID-19 pandemic, which we all experienced, demonstrated why online and digital education should be a vital part of teaching and learning going forward. By integrating technology into existing curriculum, as opposed to using it solely as a crisis management tool, teachers and students can harness online learning as a powerful educational tool. Over the last few years, we have worked closely with the Ministry of Education and Youth to infuse technology in our schools. And I want to stress that this is an extremely important partnership which we value tremendously. That relationship and partnership between ourselves and the Ministry of Education and Youth. Talking about partnership, today's online session is in collaboration with Education Solutions International, which is led by Dr. Dwayne Dice, who is based in the US, but he's a Jamaican and has very strong Jamaican connection. In fact, he's always here. Thanks, Dr. Dice, for the collaboration along with your team. We have 3 excellent presentations lined up for us, which I'm sure everyone will enjoy. The presenters will be introduced ahead of their presentations. I wish for a successful forum, our first, and I hope we all learn from this exposure. Let us infuse technology in education as we continue to inspire, integrate, and transform our country and our economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Lee. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will now have greetings from Dr. Dwayne Dice, and he is from the Education Solutions International Incorporation. Dr. Dice?
Hello everyone, I am Dr. Dwayne Dice, and I'm the founder and CEO of Education Solutions International. Education Solutions International, ESI, is an American-based nonprofit that is operated right across the globe, in the Caribbean, as well as in Europe, Africa, and Asia. ESI partners with several organizations across the globe to offer training and support to schools and students, teachers, principals, and administrators. ESI's mission is to empower every student and every educator to achieve educational success in our schools through partnerships, collaboration, professional development, and support. ESI has 6 different values: service, innovation, diversity and inclusion, social responsibility, environment, and philanthropy. ESI collaborates with eLearning Jamaica to have this forum presented on technology and leadership capabilities in order to empower leaders, not just in education, but every aspect of life, to innovate their thinking on technology and to incorporate it in their everyday life in terms of leadership. I am very proud of our partnerships right across the globe, and empowerment services for all so that we can build one powerful force across the globe. Please visit educationsolutionsinternational.org for more information.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dice. And of course, we're at eLearning Jamaica Company Limited. We're very pleased to be partnering with you on this forum. We now move on, ladies and gentlemen, to greetings from Mr. Donovan Wilson. And Mr. Donovan Wilson, he is the president of the Union of Jamaican Alumni Associations. Mr. Wilson?
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your program today. Recently, someone mentioned that they did not know anything at all about the Union of Jamaican Alumni Associations. So let me start by saying that UJA, as we're called by those who know about us, is the umbrella organization for 61 different alumni associations here in the US. It was formed because we all understood that collectively we could do more than simply having the individual groups work on their own. And so we're always happy to partner with like-minded organizations as we look to advance the mission of assisting in the education of children in Jamaica. I first came across Dr. Dice and Mrs. Dice through the Jamaica Diaspora Task Force Action Network, and particularly through his role in leading the Education Task Force. I think we can agree, those of you who followed the various seminars and presentations that they had, that it was indeed a bright period. And so as we look ahead, everyone understands that the way forward is through technology. Everyone understands that if we are going to move along with the first world countries, as we like to call them, technology is what is going to help to get us there. And so I'm excited to hear the presentations. I'm excited to hear, as Dr. Barker and others talk about the way in which we can use technology to help in education. Certainly, the motto of ESL, empowering school leaders and learners, is more easily achieved if it's done through education. So I thank you for having me on today, and I'll sit back and listen intently as the presentations are made. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we now get into the heart of the matter as to why it is that you're really here, the presentations. All right, so before we actually get into that, a little bit of housekeeping matters. Of course, we know that you're going to have questions. And so we're going to be asking you just to type your questions in the chat, and we'll be addressing your questions at the end of each presentation. All right, so the first presentation we have, it is from Dr. Miguel Barker, and he'll be presenting on the use of technology tools to enhance leadership and management. But who really is Dr. Barker? So Dr. Miguel Barker is a current head of middle school at the American International School in England in Thorpe, United Kingdom. Dr. Barker's educational experiences spans the countries of Jamaica, United Kingdom, and Oman. He has amassed extensive real-world understandings of national, independent, and international curriculum over the span of 28 years in education. He has a keen interest in how technology can transform the work of educational leaders and is always keen to share the tools he uses in his own space. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we now hand over to Dr. Miguel Barker.
Good evening. Good evening. Am I coming through clearly?
Yes, you are, Dr. Barker.
Okay, so I thank you very much for such a a wonderful introduction. I hope my presentation lives up to the way that you have introduced me. So I just need a minute to get my slides ready. So I'm just gonna have an attempt at sharing my slide, and then if it's showing, Is my screen showing? Just let me know.
Not all right. We're almost there.
Is my screen showing?
Yes, we're good to go, Dr. Barkov.
Okay, thank you very much. So, first of all, just thank you very much for the opportunity to share. It's really something that I do look forward to just have this conversation. Now, the context of how I speak is not to say that I'm speaking from the perspective of an expert per se, and I'm not saying that these are the most powerful tools. What I'm sharing here is a reflection. I'm sharing the tools that I use in my practice in order to be effective and to find the time to do what I really am paid to do when I'm working in school. So in the context of providing tools for professionals to be more effective in their practice, this is what I do. And my focus today is really on how we manage the communication that we have as the world has changed now, certainly post-pandemic, but even leading up to that, how we had that deluge of communication as we use. Some people are very, very scared when they hear the word emails. So I'm going to spend a little time talking about how I have found a way to manage my emails, and I want to share some of those tools, and then hopefully people might find the time to do what they really are supposed to be doing in schools rather than staring at their screens and pulling their hair out. So thanks for the opportunity. So as I said, how might school leaders harness technology to lead effectively? Before I get going, I just want to, I am a son of the soil. I am from Jamaica. I'm from a small part called Anata Bay, and on the northern eastern coast of Jamaica. Spent most of my life there, and my school life had me at St. Mary High School, where I did my secondary school, and then I went on to what was called Paisley Gardens Teachers College. Now it's called CASE, but when I went there, it was Paisley Gardens. I went to the university where I did my degree in mathematics and economics. Later on, I did my master's, and then I did my doctorate, and branched off into school leadership. By the time I got to the UK, went through all the ropes, I was into school leadership, and then I started to work in international education, which is slightly different from working in the UK in their national system, but working with international students. So, for example, in my last school, in the last two schools I work in, for example, this school, I was a middle school principal. I had 75 different nationalities in my school, and that was just my student body. Within my teaching teams, it was equally as diverse. So in terms of then my current school is based in the UK, just outside of London, maybe 15 minutes, about maybe 40 minutes from central London. That's because of the traffic. And I'm living in a wonderful space, and I'm working in this new school that I'm in, where I am also the head of middle school. And so in that sense, I'm working again in another diverse environment, leading a team of, again, a wide teachers from all parts of the world, providing education for transient families who are working in big companies that are relocating, as well as people who are well-to-do. They can afford to pay the fees to come to schools that I'm in. So on top of that, I'm the Chief Academic Officer at Education Solutions International. So the reason why I give you that picture is to kind of share that my experience is working with, many different types of teams. And so in order to be effective and to do what I'm paid to do, I need to find ways to manage just the information flow that happens. And so one of the things I've found is that I've kind of found a few tips. I've written a number of articles that you'll find online, can signpost it to them. And today I'm going to talk briefly about some of those things that I'm using to manage the scourge of teachers and administrators in particular, which is emails. One of the things I muse at times with friends is that, what did we used to do as educators before there was emails, before people would just be sending you an email? How did we communicate? Because at the moment, I actually cannot even consider how we would function if we don't have emails. But There was a time, certainly when I graduated from Teachers College in 1994, where we would teach, would get every piece of information shared. We didn't have the tools to do that. We weren't emailing each other. So how is it now? It's like you walk in, you open your inbox, and there's maybe 50, 60 emails to answer just within the last hour or so. So I'm wondering about that. And one of the things that I found as a new educator was how quickly I had to find a way to manage that. Otherwise, I'd spend so much time sitting in front of my computer. And so what I'm sharing with you is I'm going to share a few the strategies that I use to manage that, and hopefully that helps you. Now, there are two sides to the email. The first side is from you as the administrator, meaning you're getting all this information and you need to respond to that. The second part of it is that you have faculty, the people that you lead, the teachers that you lead, who are receiving emails and respond sometimes with anxiety because they see their inbox filling up. And some people just doesn't like to see things there that they think they need to be doing. So there are two sides to that, because it affects your productivity, but it also affects their productivity. And so what I'll be sharing with you is a number of strategies that I've used to try and, I'd say, dampen that atmosphere, making people less anxious in that environment, but now have time to focus on what they're supposed to be doing in a teaching and learning environment. So emails, just lots of emails driving people crazy. This is not an unusual phenomenon. There's a lot of research that supports what I'm speaking about here. Email overload is that feeling of stress and anxiety caused by an inbox of unanswered emails. You open it up, depending on who you are, you're just seeing a lot of emails and you're like, now where do I start? And for some people, it's not a big deal. They can scan, they can get on, but for some people, it actually affects their productivity. And if you're a new administrator or an administrator who doesn't have certain skills, certain ways in which to manage that incoming email, it can overwhelm, given that when you work in a school environment, there are other things happening. There are kids having scuffles on the playground. There are teachers who want to meet you. You need to be in classes doing stuff. So it can overwhelm me. This is straight from an Harvard Business Review article. They talk about email is certainly a threat to efficiency, but it is still an essential work tool. With email, we can document the conversations we have. With email, we can provide, clear instructions where people can go back and forth. There's a record. So it's an essential work tool. Not only that, it's not only the text you write, but the documents you can share as well. So email is critical, but when you are working as an administrator, there are some key functionings that you have. And if you are not on top of the emails, and I found that, if I'm not on top of the flow of information and the communications that are happening between me and my team and me externally, I cannot do the fundamental thing that should be happening in my school, which is to see what learning looks like in the classroom. Leave my office, walk around, get into my classrooms, talk to my teachers, and see what learning looks like. Because ultimately, as an educator, and if you're an educational leader, you can't spend your time in the office, write policies, have meetings, but have no idea what's going on in classrooms, because then you don't know the impact of your work without being able to do that. So essentially what my presentation is about as well is buying you time to get back into classroom so you can spend time walking around, knowing that you're not missing out on information, or knowing that you're not overwhelming your team with information. So you need to be looking at learning. You'll need to be able to find time to lead and manage your team. You also need to be making sure, keeping your hand on the rudder to make sure that the vision that you're trying to execute is happening through the strategic time that you create for yourself and your teams to look at those things. And you need to be raising staff morale, because obviously if your staff is overwhelmed, if they're feeling anxious, then they're not going to be effective in the classroom. And for some staff members, seeing another email and not knowing if it's urgent or not, what happens is that it can affect the way they feel. Even going into a lesson, they might think, my God, what have I missed? Am I missing something? So these are some of the key things that as a leader, you need to free yourself of in order to be effective. So essentially, I'm going to share a few tips that I've used to be more effective. Now, for some people, you might even be using some of these, but I'm just sharing them because I believe that this will help a lot of people to be effective, especially when you have a fast-moving environment. So I have 4 tips I'm going to share, and then maybe I'll take some questions if people want to know more about how I use them effectively. Now, one of the most powerful tools that I've found is to schedule your emails. Now, what do I mean? Now, long before, nowadays Gmail has that function, but long before Gmail had that, I actually had an add-on on my inbox that allowed me to schedule my emails. Now, what do I mean by scheduling my emails? Now, sometimes someone will write me an email, because staff members will write at any point in time. And they may write me an email at, let's say, 5 p.m. in the evening. Now, or even 9 p.m. in the evening, because staff members tend to write to administrators anytime they want to write. So I receive that email at 9 p.m. and I open that email and I know what I want to say. But I know that if I respond to that email at 9 p.m., it might send the wrong messages about what I expect from my team. So what I tend to do, rather than send the email at the same time, there's a little button that's right beside the send when you open a Gmail, that if you click on it, it offers the opportunity to schedule that schedule that email. And you can then choose any point in time when that email can leave your inbox. So for example, for me, when the weekend ends, so for example, on a Sunday, I'll have maybe an hour that I'm sitting at my desk on a Sunday, maybe at 4 o'clock, 5 p.m. in the evening. And I have a number of emails that I'd like to send the next day. But I don't want to send them on a Sunday. So I'll just sit and I will write all of those emails that I need to write, respond to what I need to respond, craft those emails, and I schedule them to go at a time on the following day. It means that I don't have to wait for a time to be sitting at my desk to send that email. I can do that in my own rhythm. You know, I'm one of those people who wake up early in the morning, and if I have stuff to do, I can respond to things or craft a message that I need to send out. But I can then decide when that leaves my inbox. So it's a really powerful effectiveness tool, because you could be walking around doing things, but technology is handling that communication. You might know when a teacher might be able to handle that information, maybe not first thing in the morning, but maybe at 2 p.m. because you know that's when that teacher is free. You can schedule that email to arrive in their inbox at that time. So it's a really effective tool in terms of managing your communication, but also buying you productivity time. And sometimes you get an email where you don't want to respond at the exact same time, because it might create a chain of emails that you know that you don't want. So you can even create, one of the things I do sometimes, someone will ask me a question that I want to respond to, but I just don't want to send that email right away. So I will maybe even respond and just set it to go for an hour, because I don't want to create an email chain that just seems like, here's a question, here's a question. And I'll send it an hour later, where that person, and it gives me some time at times to think about my response, because sometimes I might have created an email and then later on I find additional information. I can abort the send, update the email, and then send that as well. So there's a really powerful piece here for educators and educational leaders. Schedule your email. So it's something that I hope people take on. I found this to be a real game changer once I started to use this, and it just made me more productive, because it just meant that I didn't have to sit and wait at the time I need to send that email. I could send it on my own rhythm when I'm in my flow, but it arrives at a time when teachers are best positioned to receive it. So it's in Gmail, and it's now a part of the Gmail suite. My second tool that I'll share is something called email silence. And it's really a powerful thing that organizations need to do. For example, you know, in France, and there are many countries coming on board now with the idea that we need to have email silence, where there are moments in time that no email should be sent to anyone outside of certain hours. And one of the things that I do in my workplace is to say that we do not send emails after a certain time in the day. We actually have a long school day here, and not before a certain time. And again, in the sense that to allow people to not feel like they're missing something that has been shared. One of the most damaging thing that could happen to a professional is that they go home, spend time with their family, and then they wake up in the morning to be prepared for school, and they saw that a number of conversations had happened overnight, or people had even sent requests to them that they needed to respond to, and now it seems like they have been unprofessional. It's not a good thing. We need to give people time to have their family life and get on with things that they can do it. Because if they don't have that mental well-being, they're not going to be effective anyway in the classroom. So one of the things that I encourage administrators to do is to have email silence. Have a time when there's no email sent in your organization. Over the weekend, no. That's where it works well with the scheduling of emails, because if you have these windows, you as an administrator can choose to work in that time, but you schedule your email to go within the windows that staff would expect. So they don't believe that they're missing something because they're not checking their emails. They know that if they check their email at, let's say, 7 p.m., there wouldn't be another email in their inbox waiting for them when they get up in the morning to go to work. And it's a powerful message about boundaries and about how we see people and their own time, but also saying that when we switch on for work, we're switched on for work. And when we switch off, get on with the other things that you need to do. Again, this helps to build that staff morale, because it's important that we use email in a way that doesn't damage it. It's technology, but it can create a schism between people. You can snooze your emails. I used to have another tool before Google created Snooze. So I've been using these for years, called Boomerang. And what really happens is you get an email in your inbox, and if you don't want to, some people use what mark it as unread. Another thing you can do rather than doing marking as unread, you can tell Google when to send this email back to you. So you can read it, but you don't want to respond to it at the same time. You can just say, I'm going to snooze it until tomorrow. And what happens at the time that you choose, Google will just bring this email back into your inbox as a brand new email. So you can quickly make some decisions as you go through your inbox. You know you're not going to answer this now. You can click on it, snooze it. When you're snoozing, there's a little clock at the end. Once you click on it, you have options. You can pick any time. Someone asks you something about a project, and that project, you're required to respond to it, but not today. You don't have the answers. You have a meeting you need to go to get that information before you can respond. You don't want to have any email in your inbox that looks like you haven't read it yet. You just simply snooze it to the time that you feel is a good time for it to come back. And then Google will automatically bring that back in your inbox. Now that helps a lot, because then it feels like a new email, and then you can carry on with what you need to do. So it's a nice tool to use. This is, again, something that's free. Some people use a tool called Mark as Unread. It means you're going through your email and marking them as unread. And the more you add unread emails, then you end up with a lot of unread emails, and it felt like you haven't yet cleared your inbox. Because the other thing I do is I have something called a zero inbox. I always try to get my inbox to zero. I always want to do that before I leave. Every time in my day, I have moments where I check emails and then I move on with the rest of the day. And so I get it to zero and I go, and I'm making very quick decisions on that. Mention Boomerang. One of the most powerful things I've done, though, and it came from something a teacher said to me once. They said when they receive an email, they do not know how to process it, so they cannot ignore it. They have to open it. And so when they open it, that's when they know what is inside of it. And that's a really, sometimes teachers say things, and it's important that as educational leaders, you process that. So the teacher sees the email, they see the subject line, but they do not know yet what is in the email. They open the email and they might go, oh, is that it? I just wasted my time reading something I didn't have to look at. They don't know what's urgent. They don't know what's just for information only. So one of the things that I've started to do, and this is fairly new, maybe 2-3 years, I've started to code my subject line so that when someone received an email from me, they know what is happening in that email and what kind of response I'm expecting. So And I can share an article that I wrote about this to explain this with the ASCD. So there, I use 4 codes. So I call it the UFAT system. So UFAT. And if I write urgent on an email, I actually expect my staff to be opening that email now, read it, and I expect some form of a response. It's urgent. It could be urgent, meaning read it. It's important, you know it, and you only need to know this now. It could be something to do with safeguarding. It could be something that we need an urgent meeting because something has happened. And if I put urgent in the subject line, so I begin urgent, colon, and then I'll maybe put the subject of the meeting. But urgent implies that this needs to be read now. You need to read this the moment you see this email, open it, read it. I have 3 other options that I can use for my subject line to code it. Timely. Timely is my most commonly used email subject line. It just simply means this is information that you need to know, but you can read it at your leisure, maybe by the end of the day. But it's not urgent. It's just information I'm sharing. It could be, for example, I've observed a lesson and I just want to tell you my feedback from that lesson, and I've just said timely. Or it could be some information about a meeting that's due to be happening soon. But it means that you don't feel the pressure to open that email when my staff receives it. They know that it's timely. I'll get to it when I have the time by the end of the day. Not forever. Professionals wouldn't do that. So the idea is just to say to my staff members when they open it, it's timely. You can read this later, but I've sent it to you. It's now in your inbox, but don't waste time. If you have something urgent to do, leave that for now. Action normally is just to say there's something that needs to be done. It doesn't indicate urgent. It just means there's an action that I expect that will follow from this. Maybe I might have observed your lesson, and the action is that you're going to write your feedback to me. Or maybe we had a meeting and there are some tasks that people have to do, and I might say, here's an action email. Again, it's not urgent. It's just that these are some actions that you'll take from this email, and you might scan it later on and say, oh, I know what I'm supposed to do. And FYI, it's 99% of the time information just one way. I'm just telling you something. It could just be a summary from a meeting. It could be a meeting I had with maybe a summary of another conversation I had. It's just FYI. But sometimes I get lazy. I might put U or T or A or F only, or I write the word word, but always begin my email subject line with this code. And so what happens, as soon as my team members receive my emails, they're beginning to see in their inbox what is urgent, what I have some time with, what I can get back to. Because when they see a full inbox, it's important that they can scan and know what they can do right now and what they can save until later. And if we don't put ourselves in that side as administrators, we don't understand the anxiety that people have when they see lots of emails. They see an email from me, they're thinking, it's coming in from Dr. Barker. What is it about? Oh, it says timely. I can carry on. It's coming in, it says urgent. I need to open it. So that's the way that I've been doing. And every time I send an email, it will have this as a subject line. In fact, I use this even when I'm doing even just normal emails outside of my professional environment. One final thing that I do as well is use Google Classroom, not from a teacher to student, but I use it to manage a lot of the communication that I share with my staff. So I create a Google Classroom for my entire faculty, and I use it as our classroom. And so I can put any kind of resource there. I can put the news, the faculty news, like my weekly memo. I just stick it inside of Google Classroom. It means that it is storing them in one place. Surveys, if I need to ask a survey, I can stick that into my Google Classroom. So I'm reducing email traffic in that sense. If I have professional development sessions, I just stick them into my Google Classroom. All the resources are there, all the tasks are there. So I'm turning it into my own classroom for my team to work in. Observation notes, I can stick those in and make them personal to the person that I'm writing those on. And any resources that I have to share, websites, links, anything, I have a Google Classroom. So everyone is in my kind of like our faculty Google Classroom, where we're using that to manage, emails that we would be sending every single time we need to send them. We put them in the Google Classroom. It means that teachers can go back to their Google Classroom, our Google Classroom, and find resources that were shared maybe a long time ago, but now it's there. But then as you build that up over the year, what you have is a repository of all of what's happening. It's a simple thing to do. We tend to see Google Classroom from a teacher to student, but from faculty and colleagues, it works very well as well to manage your thing. Now, the number one thing is, if you're an administrator, you cannot be stuck beside a desk. You cannot be, because if you allow emails to overwhelm you, you're going to be stuck behind the desk, writing emails. Our job is to get into classrooms. Our job is to leave our desk and start walking into classroom to see what the learning looks like. It doesn't make any sense you have a meeting, planning policy, laying out policy, but you have no idea what that impact looks like in the classroom. When you get into classrooms regular, your conversations with teachers change, because now they know that your visit are not evaluative. They're there to support because they see you enough. For me personally, my goal is to get into 3 different classrooms every single day. Every day. And it doesn't have to be half an hour. 10 minutes, I can plan half an hour that I do 3 10-minute visits, pop into a classroom. Sometimes I join the lessons. Sometimes I just walk around, look, see what's happening. The teacher might fill me in, or I make my own judgment. I leave. I might just say, today I popped into your classroom briefly. It's a quick email. I'm starting that email timely. I've been in your classroom briefly. I noticed that you were working on something. I ask a question maybe, or I might just say, you know what? I learned a lot today. Thanks for having me. And that's it. But we need to get into classroom. Imagine if you do 3 classrooms per day, 5 days a week, 3 different classrooms, that's 15 classrooms. Even if your team, it doesn't matter how big your team is, within 2-3 weeks, you'd have seen every teacher. And if you carry that on, 15 classrooms a week, in a year, we do roughly about 38 weeks in a school year. That's 500 classrooms for the year. So, but you need to free yourself first from your desk. So what I'm sharing with you is simply the power of using technology to free yourself so you can do what you really need to be doing as administrator. So I know I've maybe just about used my time or gone over the time, but thank you for listening, and I hope that might help someone. So that's from me. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Barker. Absolutely, you shared some very interesting and informative tips with us. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to take your questions. So remember, please, we're asking you to, type your questions in the chat, and of course, we'll take your questions from there. So, do we have any questions? No? All right, so we're a little bit over time, and we want to ensure that we're out of here by 8 o'clock. So we're gonna be moving on, ladies and gentlemen. And I know it was a lot for us to take in just now, so we're gonna take in just a little bit, some time. And with me, I have Miss Patrice Townsend, and she is our Business Development Manager here at eLearning Jamaica Company Limited. And she has some, interesting information for us, and of course, Ms. Townsend, we're going to hand over to you. What do you have to share?
Thank you, Kimona. Good day, everyone. I take this opportunity to thank you for joining us on this forum. It is the first of 2 leading up to our Technology in Education Conference to be held next year, May 24th to 25th. Under the theme, Embracing Education Transformation Through Technology Integration. So if you have any interest at all in technology in education, this conference will be the one to attend. We will have a host of presentations and workshops, as well as displays for you to participate. We will also publish a call for papers soon in the print and social media, so if you're interested, you can make your submissions. Additionally, we will publish updates on the main conference in the print and social media in weeks to come. Stay tuned.
All right, thank you so much, Patrice. And just to note, ladies and gentlemen, when we say stay tuned to our social media platforms, to remind you, our Instagram page, our handle is @eLearningJA, and our Twitter page also is @eLearningJA. So feel free to, of course, like our pages, follow us, and as Patrice said, stay tuned, and you will definitely get more information, especially as it relates to the call for papers, through those mediums as well as our print media. We now move on to the second presentation, and this will be done by Mr. Dominic Christopher. So quickly, Mr. Dominic Christopher, he's an expert at identifying errors within a business which requires updating or improving. His track record includes quickly detecting what is important to a business and, of course, developing innovative solutions to any shortcomings. He plays a key role in analyzing IT-related problems, my apologies, and producing methodologies and files for effective data management. Mr. Dominic Christopher, he'll be presenting on the topic Technology Data Mining and Data Analysis Towards Informed Leadership. So, Mr. Dominic Christopher, I hand over to you, sir.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm Dominic Christopher, and my background is in data analytics. It's I'm not sure who it was, but mentioned 10 years ago because everyone actually pivoted towards technology. The new word is actually data. And what is data? Data is actually using facts and mathematics to really analyze and make decisions. My company focus key roles for different industries. Technically, it's more of thinking outside of the box as to how we can solve problems, create ideas, and improve opportunities for different stakeholders. Stakeholders include different partners from a company as to how we pretty much do the research. So in order to make a data-driven decision, as I mentioned, that affects actually every industry, the first step is you focus on doing research. And once you do the research, it gives you an opportunity where you can understand the business and their target audience, and also focus on implementing and optimizing business ideas as to how you can help that business. After you do the research, so there are different steps. After you do the research in data, that's when you actually focus on the planning. And for every business, we focus on the information that we did based on the research as to how we can actually implement ideas to help. Is it Dr. Baker just mentioned, for example, went over with the emails, is where businesses would have issues, as he mentioned, regarding the emails, and decide, okay, what time of the day is best to send an email. We, as analysts, we try not to focus on assumptions. The first step is where we do the research, and the research will pretty much become technical, as that, yes, for a college campus, everyone is actually on the same time zone. But working for a larger firm, a nationwide firm or international firm, is where you do like a broader analytics to say, based on the different time zone, as to when is the best time to actually send an email. So for example, the decision that was made is where it's based on the research that an analyst would have actually made. So for our stakeholders, after doing the planning to focus on the task, is where we focus pretty much on implementation. And the implementation, everything is step by step, pretty much a ladder. With the implementation is where we focus on the aspect of the businesses, and it could be providing emails, a website, social media, and it's all based on what their target audience is and the best way to actually reach their customers. I'll give an example of implementation. For example, it could be a restaurant. Most restaurant consumers will not, based on the data, will not be going on a website to look for the best thing that a restaurant has to offer. There are different ways you can implement that to reach your consumers. Social media is one of the largest pieces right now. And also you look at also other web platforms, for example, Yelp and TripAdvisor, because we all go and eat and we want to see what we're eating. So instead of actually reviewing a restaurant based on what that restaurant actually put, the research comes from us, where us as individuals, where we'll look at what folks who visited the establishment prior to say, okay, these are what they posted, this is what the food looks like, and you can use the opportunity to say, you know what, this is the best place to go for Thanksgiving that's coming up, for Christmas to going up, and for your loved ones for Valentine's Day. Right? So these are the implementation based on the research that we'll do to make sure that it is the best way to reach the consumers. So once you focus on implementation, the next step is where we'll focus, as I mentioned earlier, about the stakeholders. So the stakeholders are the ones who will actually make the decision in every business. Could be the president, could be the project manager, that we can provide that it's not going to be biased. It's going to be full research so that it can actually help the business to grow. At times, based on the research, it's not what the best that the business actually is looking for, but it's the best to move forward, because with those decisions is that they can pretty much transition along the right path, because currently most businesses will be making decisions based off their gut feelings and trying to create a margin where they're looking for at least generating at least 35%, but not making the right decision is 10% or even lower. So as analysts, we will come in to say, how is the best way to help? So it is, it is kind of tedious, where we spend most of our time doing research, and in order for us to focus on results, our research has to be accurate and a less margin for errors for us to showcase to our clients. As an analyst in New York City, I just want to touch on and say, apart from the 9 to 5, based on the work that we do, I was just appointed by the New York City Mayor, Eric Adams, to chair the committee, the Small Business Advisory. Well, just been appointed on the Small Business Advisory Commission, but just appointed to chair the committee that actually focus on research on enforcement and operation. And why is that a big deal? As Caribbean, we will be categorized as within the Black and the Brown community, and businesses within our community, predominantly mostly restaurants, do face a lot of enforcement issues. And even reviewing what was presented, the data could have been biased, as that it's not the best, it wasn't the best method of reaching the Caribbean/Jamaican community. So as chairperson for the enforcement is where, we revise the data, we revise the method as to how we'll reach businesses within the community, as how we can best serve them. So as it relates to enforcement agencies, for example, just as in New York, we'd have the Ministry of Agriculture, of Health, Transportation, and also the Jamaica Constable Force, which we'll consider as the NYPD here. They will issue out individual summonses as it relates to target enforcement to the community. So instead of debating the matter, the best thing is that we utilize data as a way that we could be factual into presenting, and ways that we can present to make better policies as it relates to the Caribbean community. Also, apart from the 9 to 5, I'm also the co-founder of Day Abroad Village and also Caribbean American Restaurant Association. The main concept of Day Abroad Village is for us as a community in the diaspora is like we're here abroad, and Jamaica will say we're there abroad. Myself and my co-founders who are also analysts, we noticed that there was a lack of reaching, of getting resources in the community. So we thought it was best that why not create a database where members of the community can actually benefit. So on the database, we'll utilize on the back end to say students who are a part of UJA, business owners who are part of different association, where we can know what their needs are. So we look at the majority of the students based on their major in the diaspora, that we can try to source businesses that can offer opportunities. Opportunities include discounts, incentives, and also internship opportunities, and also mentoring opportunities. So based on the data that collected from CUNY, New York City University, or College University of New York, we looked at the statistics to show what are the needs are based on the community in New York City. And because of that, we try to promote students to utilize our platform that they can get majority of the internship opportunities. After finishing the program, they also have the option where they can stay in the diaspora or utilize that US experience to build in Jamaica and other Caribbean islands. The second piece is, and this is also based on data, during the pandemic, majority of the Caribbean restaurants actually lost a lot because it happened to everyone so fast that restaurant owners, they did not know how to transition or operate during the pandemic. So we've done extensive meetings with different stakeholders, different government officials in New York as to what resources are available. None was available for our community. And to me, it doesn't really come as a surprise. So doing the research, speaking with different restaurant owners, trying to understand what their needs are, we decided to transition and create the Restaurant Association. It is not member-based. It was not a paid membership organization. It's more of where we can do researches to assist the needs of the Caribbean restaurants. And because of the data, how it definitely impacts our life is where we could do the research to know what the challenges are. And as I mentioned prior regarding the enforcement committee, the challenge that they face from the police department is a top priority, which needs to resolve. We also look at the data to say, since it's a seller's market, how can we switch the narrative where the Caribbean restaurants can offer buying power for the goods that they buy. Majority of these restaurants owners are also Jamaicans. We use the data, technical research, to know what goods they're more interested in terms of importing from Jamaica. The data shows that they would love to have more ackee. And because of that is where we can talk to different stakeholders to say, if ackee is grown wild in Jamaica, we need to create more vineyards because the data shows there's a market for it. The data also will show that there's not much breadfruit being consumed in restaurants. So we can now use that to different stakeholders here, exporters here, importers here in the US, and also farmers, exporters in Jamaica, to farm and process more breadfruit because there's a market. So it is good that, you can actually have not use your gut feeling, but feel, great that you can make decision, not just based on guessing, but decision that can be profitable as you go forward. And the students who are listening, it's also an opportunity where based on your industry, based on your major, it could also be an asset to your employers that you can provide, data-driven ideas, which will pretty much turn into solution to actually individually help your industry. So with with the conversations we're having here, I really think that it's a good opportunity for us as Jamaican to tap into more of what this line of business has to offer, because it's not limited to only a specific industry. It affects us all as individuals, ideas that we make. It could be, booking a flight to come to the US. It could be looking for items for back to school. You're going to look at the reviews. You're going to look at reviews on Amazon. That right there is data. Because you're looking at the reviews to see, okay, which product you should buy. And in order for those products, in order to make those decisions, is where we follow the different steps in terms of doing research, where we can present to our shareholders that they can actually analyze and act on the research that we actually provide to them. If anyone have any questions, I am open to answer. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Mr. Dominic Christopher, for that presentation. Checking, do we have any questions in the chat? All right, and that is good. That means we'll be out of here in no time before our 8 p.m. deadline. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to our final presentation, and this presentation, it will be done by Mr. Trevor Forrest, and he'll be presenting to you on online safety concerns and data security. So, for those of us who may not know Mr. Forrest, with more than 30 years of experience in the IT industry, Mr. Forrest's service in the local ICT industry has demonstrated a commitment to driving improved standards of ICT adoption across the private and public sector, where he has consulted on the design and evaluation of numerous ICT projects and digital transformation strategies. He's also well known for evangelizing the adoption and the use of open source technology across the public and private sector. Mr. Forrest, he's also the Chief Executive Officer and founder of 876 Technology Solutions, a provider of comprehensive open source based technology solutions serving the Caribbean market. And with that being said, we now hand over to Mr. Forrest, who will be again presenting on online safety concerns and data security. And just to let you know, with everything that's happening within our country at this point in time and in the world, I definitely implore you to, listen to this presentation, because we will see how applicable, it can be. Mr. Forrest, over to you, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Kimona, for the introduction. I trust everyone can see my screen. We're talking about cybersecurity and education, and a lot of people many times don't quite see the importance and the linkage. So I hope to demystify some of that in the presentation today.
All right, so Mr. Forrest, you're muted, sir. They're just gonna ask you.
Yeah, no, I thought I thought I took that off. So,
that's all right. So we're just gonna ask you just to go back a little bit.
All right.
All right, cool.
So yeah, man. We talk about cybersecurity in education, and a lot of times people don't see the linkage between the two, right? And what I hope to do this evening is to kind of demystify some of the things associated with that, and I hope that we're able to shed some light on some of the issues with security in education, and also to spur some interest and some questions. All right. So my company, 876 Technology Solutions, been around since 2006. And among other things, like, data analytics, digital transformation, consulting, we do data and information security solutions and consulting, right? We accomplish this through, a lot of the partnerships that we have, some major industry partnerships that we have. And through these partnerships, we're able to provide, a wide array of solutions to our clients. So, earlier, a discussion was had as it relates to data and the importance of data. And, we're all, sitting now in what can easily be termed a hyper-connected world. And because of that, data now has become more important and extremely valuable. So you'll hear terms like data is the new oil, or it's a new currency. Or so in some circles, data is the new poison, because data and its value have become so important now that it has created an entirely new ecosystem. And with that, it has created an entirely new type of crime and criminal, right? And one of the things that often escapes a lot of us, we're in this connected world. We're out there doing a lot of stuff on our phones, on our computers, our tablets, our laptops. We're connecting to Wi-Fi all over the place. We're interacting and engaging in what we call the Web 2.0 reality. There's a lot of content, a lot of information that is being thrown at us that we're consuming. And a lot of times we don't realize that in all of this, the value of the data that is sent to us, but more so the value of the data that we possess, which is our data, is extremely important. So much so that we have become a product, because our data, our personal information, is extremely valuable and extremely important, and it is now the driving force behind a lot of the threats that exist online. Just how valuable is this? Well, this year alone, you will find that the cost of cybercrime will exceed $6 trillion. Yeah, $6 trillion. So we're talking about $11 million per minute in cybercrime damage, right? Now, that's a staggering number. In fact, by 2025, that number is expected to double to over $10 trillion. And one of the correlations I often use nowadays is the cost of cybercrime currently is higher than the combined cost of the entire drug trade. All right, let's let that sink in for a second, right? So there's a lot of value in being a cyber criminal. And a lot of what prevails in that space is the value of the data. The data is very important. So you would say, well, okay, well, what does all that have to do with education? Well, most times when people think about cybercrime, they say, well, cyber attacks are going to be against banks, financial institutions, and insurance companies, and governments, and all of that. What is very surprising, and these figures I'm going to show you are the most recent one. What is most surprising is the average number of attacks per week per organization by industry has education and research being the most targeted. And we're like, what? That doesn't make sense. That's not possible. Well, there's a reason for that. And the reason stems from the fact that because most of us in education don't view, the education sector as a target, we don't really invest a lot in securing the data that we have. So So to give you some clear understanding of that, in the last year or two, cyber incidents against the education sector went up 75% now. That's again a staggering thing. You know why? Because the people who want the data are not going to go for the hardest target. They're going to go for the softest ones. And because we're not investing a lot in education, security of data, that's where they go, which is why this number is so high. Schools are the #2 target for ransomware attacks. And again, because the sector is the education sector is ranked as the least secure, again, it is considered a soft target. And there are a whole bunch of other statistics. 30% of users in the education space have fallen prey to phishing attacks. And we were talking about emails before. It was a great presentation about emails because everybody is using emails to communicate. But emails are now a major threat surface for nefarious actors. So we find that there are a lot of the education sector is a target-rich sector, and again, it's primarily because we don't take time to understand the value of the data that exists in the education sector and the value that that data has to cyber criminals. And you say, well, what kind of data is valuable? Well, if you think about it, many education institutions have taken their operations online. They're doing online classes. Their school management systems are online or electronic. Their student management systems are online and so on. And when you think about it, all of the information about students, their parents, and so on are stored in these systems. Name, address, date of birth, all that kind of stuff. And all of this stuff is extremely valuable. And if it's not adequately protected, it becomes a very easy target. All right. So what I want to do now is just talk about some of the threats that are out there, because it's important that we kind of understand the kinds of threats that are out there, and then how we mitigate these threats, and how I'm going to kind of frame this is, and I break it down as to the general threats that are out there, and the threats that teachers encounter, the threats that students encounter, and the threats that parents and their children encounter. I'm going to kind of break it down like that so we kind of understand in its entirety the kind of situation that prevails right now. So what are some of the current online threats? Well, one of the biggest ones is identity theft. And that's both as it affects adults and children, right? You have some other ones, denial of service attacks, virus and ransomware attacks. And these are some of the ones that you hear, a lot in the news. Password attacks, phishing attacks. Then you have some that have some more interesting terms, some of them comical. Watering hole attacks, camfecting, Zoom bombing, and Zoom bombing became very popular at when COVID set in and we were doing a lot of online learning and that kind of stuff. Camfecting, and some people, this is a very new term to many people. Camfecting is when hackers take control of the camera and you don't know, and they may be looking or seeing the things that you do unbeknownst to you, and so on. So these are some of the things that are some clear and present threats online. There are a couple of others: drive-by attacks, man in the middle, man in the browser and browser attacks. These are just a short list of the kinds of attacks that are out there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go through some of the key ones here and just give you a little deeper understanding of each one of these, and then talk about how and who is affected by these and how you can mitigate these threats. So let's start with identity theft. And it's like, well, identity theft, whereas we could understand that, identity theft may occur for adults, it's not always entirely clear how identity theft can happen with children. And put simply, identity theft is really where threat actors are looking to get information about your online footprint to use it to conduct, crimes, steal your money, steal information, but most importantly, to become you online. Now, why is that significant? Well, when you think about it, when you go online on a computer and you're doing a transaction or doing work with another entity or another business online or another computer, the entity on the other end doesn't know who in person is really communicating with them. They understand that another computer is communicating with them, but who is sitting in front of that computer? They don't know who it is. So if I could actually get your credentials to become you behind that computer, then I can carry out the same sorts of things that you could carry out if you were doing these transactions. And that's what identity theft is about. It happens a lot, in the banking sector where people's identities are stolen and thieves, try to become people and, transfer money onto their bank accounts and so on. But think about this. How does that play with children? Well, let me put that into perspective. Right now, when your child registers for school, that information is stored somewhere. And chances are a lot of that information will follow them from, perhaps primary school or first form in high school, all the way up to, university, right? Well, that information is valuable, right? Because their name, their date of birth, and a lot of that information, including who their family members are and so on, becomes extremely important. Why? Well, sometimes you might use bits and pieces of that information to, create a password. So having access to that information is extremely valuable. And threat actors, they use that kind of stuff in order to, perpetrate different types of crimes. The thing that we spoke of was this thing called distributed denial of service attacks. Now, very big, confusing terminology, but really what this kind of attack is where, the hackers use many computers to render certain systems unusable. And how do they do that? Well, they may send some software to you via email or in the form of an update. And that software sits on your computer, benign for some time. And then at a particular period of time, this hacker will then communicate with your computer and then tell your computer to attack another system. Now think about the fact that we have billions of devices that are connected on the internet. And if I could now get command of a couple thousand or a couple 100,000 devices and say, go and attack this server, go and attack this nation state, the results could be devastating, right? So when we're talking about attacking hundreds of servers or hundreds of different machines, I could perhaps put together something like this to attack a school or a school's system. And in doing so, that school cannot function. If you're administering tests online, you couldn't do that anymore because these attacks are occurring, and they do happen, right? The next one is something that many of us are familiar with, the virus attacks, the malware, and the ransomware attacks, where through a variety of different means, you get an email, you may get a file, you may have something on a jump drive, you put it on you, plug it into your laptop or your computer, you don't have antivirus software, and the virus gets installed on your computer, or some malicious software gets installed on your computer, and it prevents you from gaining access to your files. It may crash your computer and so on. So, without the right software on your computer to mitigate this kind of stuff, you could find that your computer doesn't work. Ransomware kind of took it up a notch, where instead of simply rendering your machine unusable, what it would do is render your files unusable so that the threat actor could ask you now to pay them to get access to your files again. So your files are still on the computer, you just can't access them, and you'd have to then pay someone to give you back access to your files. So this is another kind of threat that occurs. A more popular one is the password attack, where many of us, passwords are viewed as a hindrance a lot of times. So we have some very simple passwords, perhaps, 5, 8 characters. And sometimes these passwords provide access to extremely sensitive data. Well, if I could gain access to your password, or if I could guess your password, then I could gain access to your accounts, because most times, what is your username? Probably your email address, and we can find that out easily, right? So one of the techniques that is employed a lot of times is a thing called brute force, where attackers have these very large dictionaries of passwords, or they may go on what's called the dark web, and they go and buy databases of compromised information, and they use these passwords to try to guess in a programmatic way, an automated way, to guess your password. And all they want to do is get a couple of these things, and suddenly they have access to your information. So the password attacks are again something that's very prevalent, still used nowadays. The next one is something that is happening quite a bit. And a lot of people may have heard about this. Again, the naming is quite interesting. It's called phishing. Now, phishing attacks are where an attacker may send an email to you, and the email looks legitimate. It may have an attachment, and the attachment may look legitimate. And because you're in the regular hustle and bustle, you get an email that could look like it came from your boss or from a family member. You simply go about your regular routine activity, and you open the email and you click on the attachment, not knowing that the attachment itself has malicious software embedded in it. And once you open the attachment, or even in some cases open the email, that software is then installed on your computer, and everything, all hell breaks loose after that. This is particularly useful, especially when you're trying to get access to secure networks, because understand that all of the advanced protection in the world does not prevent somebody from receiving an email and opening an attachment. Right, that's a matter of awareness and understanding. So phishing attacks are extremely effective because by nature they circumvent a lot of what they call the perimeter security on networks and different environments like that. The next type of attack, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, is called a watering hole attack, and these attacks are designed by threat actors to monitor places that people go a lot, look at their behavior there, and then use that behavior to then send malware or malicious software or code onto their machine. What are some of the popular places people go? Social media, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and those kinds of places. So you have a whole bunch of different types of attacks that are happening. And they're using all of these different attack vectors to gain access to your systems, to perpetrate different kinds of things there. One that came about that a lot of people got familiar with when COVID came around and we're using platforms like Zoom, that was this thing called Zoom bombing, where because people weren't protecting their Zoom meetings effectively, suddenly odd people would come on and start to compromise the meeting, because the Zoom link was publicly known, and a number of people are very familiar with the Zoom bombing. So strangers would show up in your Zoom meeting and start to do very strange strange things in your meeting, and you just couldn't understand how or why that happened. So what I want to do now is kind of put some things down into perspective and say, okay, what schools should know and teachers, and how to treat with these threats, and just provide some tips. I'm going to kind of try to run through this pretty quickly. So what are some of the threats that are faced by schools and teachers? Well, here are the top 5. Phishing, where again, as we described before, you might get an email with attachments or malware embedded in it, and it suddenly affects not only your computer but your network. Distributed denial of service attacks, which we explained before. Ransomware, which we spoke to before as well. Data breaches, and again, the importance of data and the information that are stored at schools and also by teachers cannot be underestimated. You are in possession of some very, very valuable information and data. And then, because we're in a connected world, the new trend of IoT, Internet of Things devices, your mobile phone, your Alexas, your smart watches, or any smart device, all of these devices represent what's called a threat surface that is a target for nefarious actors. So what do you do to protect yourself from these kinds of attacks? Well, I have 5 really, really quick and simple things for schools and teachers to protect, to provide some basic protection against this. First of all, for schools, you want to create some sound and robust cybersecurity policies that kind of guide and instruct your staff as to what to do, what the best practices are when you're using the technology. The next thing you want to do, which is something that we don't do a lot of at all, is to encrypt your devices and the data. And what encryption is really a way of protecting the data from unauthorized access, right? And in doing so, if devices get stolen, if nefarious actors are trying to get to sensitive data, unless is to get access to that data, they will not.
Mr. Forrest?
We've lost him. Well, he's...
Oh, Lord. So, all right. So we lost you just for a minute.
Am I back with you?
Yeah, you're back. You're here. We're hearing you. All right.
Am I back with you guys? Are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you. Are you hearing me? I guess he's...
Let me make sure I can share.
You're sharing, Mr. Forrest. We're still seeing your screen. All right, so Mr. Forrest is not hearing me at this time. All right, so we are going to just try and make contact with Mr. Forrest in a few. Just to, of course, notify you.
All right, so yeah, I think I'm back with you guys. All right, so the next thing you want to be able to do is to...
All right, so we lost Mr. Forrest there. So we're gonna try and see, yeah, completely. We're gonna try and see if we can get back to him in short order. Just to, of course, notify you, ladies and gentlemen, who are still with us. In the description, you will see a link. We're going to ask you kindly, of course, we want to hear from you. So we're going to ask you kindly just to fill out that survey. And, as I said, it's just for us to keep contact with you, of course, on the upcoming events that we'll be having in the months to come. I'm seeing a question in the chat, and this is eLearning's YouTube page, but definitely this question is for Mr. Forrest. And so we're going to try our best to see if it is that we can get him back online. Mr. Roden, Patrick Roden, I'm seeing your question, so you're asking if it is that, I will be sharing this information. Definitely, the presentation or the forum overall is going to be posted to our YouTube page, so definitely feel free to, visit that once again, just to, review the presentation. So of course we want to thank you again. We're seeing your comment, very informative information. I most definitely agree. Yes, and that seems to be, the comments or sentiment shared by, persons within the chat, that the information that we're presenting to you today is quite informative. Wouldn't you say so, Michelle?
Definitely.
All
Most
right.
definitely.
And you must be wondering, who is this lovely lady beside me, ladies and gentlemen? This is Michelle Babalal. And Michelle Babalal, she is the project manager for the executive office. She's with me simply because she's going to be giving the vote of thanks, but I don't think we're at that point just yet to give the vote of thanks. But he's back. He's back with us.
Yeah.
Okay, Grace. Mr. Forrest, before you continue, just in case we lose you, I'm just going to lose you again. There's a question from Raquel Watson, and she's asking, well, it's a statement then a question. Some software claims to protect your device and it becomes a threat. Add viruses to the PC, mobile phone, etc. So which software is highly recommended for students and commercial businesses? So that's a question coming from Raquel Watson.
Right, it's a really good question, and it's with the plethora of software that is out there, it's always a challenge. But one of the first things you want to do is don't go for the free ones. Okay, again, if it's free, you're the product. If it's free, it only does so much. And I know a lot of times, we say, yeah, we want to get these things, but we don't have the money. Well, the thing about it is there is always going to be a cost. So there's a cost to free, right? So I typically recommend, there are about 5 or 6 of them that I recommend. There's Bitdefender, there is Norton, there's McAfee, even Microsoft Defender is pretty good. And you get that one with if you're using Windows. Kaspersky, that's another good one, and even AVG. Those are some of the more reputable ones out there. And again, if you're even in doubt, go online, go to Google and just search for top 5 or top 10 best internet security solutions, and you'll see a lot of those names I call show up in there. So it's a really good question, because a lot of times you don't know which ones to choose. Now, what's really interesting now is a lot of the ones that are available for your computers are available for your mobile phone or your tablet or your laptop or whatever. So what they do is they offer a complete protection package. So once you buy one for your computer, you actually get it across all of your devices. So you want to look for those as well. Hope that answers that question.
I hope so too. Mr. Forrest, so I'm going to allow you to complete your presentation. I'm seeing where we have additional questions.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue with the presentation. So I think where I left off was talking about practicing good password management. And this again is how you protect yourself from some of the threats out there. One of the challenges most people have, though, is when you talk about good password management, a lot of people, their thing is, man, I can't remember how some of these long passwords just don't work for me, right? So what we typically encourage people to do is not to think about a password as a whole bunch of, cryptic letters, numbers, and so on, but more to think about it as a phrase. So if I told you to create a long password, many people, and I said, create a password that's 20 characters long. Most people would say, I can't do that. And that's because they're thinking of letters, numbers, and symbols. But if you consider a phrase like, my best friend's name is John, and then you take that phrase and you put in some, some characters and symbols, suddenly you have a password that mentally you can remember, but visually is very complex. So think about using things like pass phrases that you then, transpose symbols and numbers and letters with, as a way of creating very long and complex passwords. Another important thing, back up your data. One of the best ways to recover from any sort of attack is to restore backups. Backups are very important. And finally, a key thing is to protect your devices from physical access, because a lot of times some of the attacks that occur are based on the fact that somebody got physical access to your device. So in the case of schools where you have your servers and so on, you want to make sure that those devices and that kind of equipment is in a very secure place that is not accessible by just anyone. All right. All right. So let's talk about this thing we mentioned earlier about Zoom. I wanted to mention this in just really quickly. A lot of people are already familiar with this because of what they had to treat with when a lot of these problems came up. But quickly, to protect yourself from Zoom bombing, a couple of things you want to do here. Don't publicly share the meeting links when you create them, all right? Always create a waiting room. And in doing so, you can then manage who you let into the meeting. Always secure your meetings with a password. Make sure that only the people who are, presenting or the host, ensure that only the host can share their screens. Make sure that in some cases, if you're doing like webinars and so on, that participants have to sign up and authenticate and log in. Sometimes it may be a pain, but it will save, a lot as it relates to embarrassment and so on from nefarious actors coming in on your earning session. And, when you create that waiting room and you see a whole bunch of people coming in, if you're in doubt or if you see somebody in your meeting that you're not sure of, are they supposed to be there or not, kick them out. It's as simple as that. And then maybe they'll pick up the phone and call you and say, I was just trying to get into the meeting. And, so don't trust, just verify. All right. All right. So let's talk about some of the threats that students should know. Again, I'm going to go through a lot of these really quickly. Data theft. Again, students tend to, be a little careless with their devices. They have to be, cognizant of that. Camp thefting, for kids who are doing remote school, you always want to make sure that their devices have, the ability to, lock the camera. You maybe simply put a piece of tape over it, or you can get those little camera shutters. Some of them come on the laptops now. Some of them you can just get or buy separately. But you also have to be mindful of what happens when you go on social media, because social media is a fabulous threat surface for nefarious actors. Why? Because you're communicating with your friends, you're talking to a whole bunch of people, but you're also talking to some people who you don't know. You don't actually know these people. You're having great conversations with them, but you don't know them. And as a result of that, the conversations that you're having or the experiences you're having can go from, hero to bad in a heartbeat. So you want to be very careful about your interactions in that space as well. So couple of things that you want to do in furtherance of that. Don't share too much information on social media, right? If you're getting emails from school, make sure that you check that it is legitimately from school before you go and open any emails. If you see anything that looks suspicious, delete it. Try to use, complex passwords, like we were saying, passphrases. Don't tell anybody a password. A lot of us also, you're going to see a lot of these things are, kind of mentioned over and over again. A lot of us, we use public Wi-Fi now. The government has gone on an effort to create a lot of public Wi-Fi hotspots across the island, which is great. But public Wi-Fi is also a point for nefarious actors to gain access to your data. So one of the things you want to do is to install what they call VPN software on your computer. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. And what that does is it protects your connection to public Wi-Fi. And it does so by encrypting the data that goes across your Wi-Fi connection, which makes it very difficult for hackers to gain access to your device. All right. And another thing that you kind of want to do is on most computers, when you select a Wi-Fi network, most people like to click on automatically reconnect. Don't do that. Always reconnect manually. All right. So you want to do that, and you always want to ensure that your computers and your operating systems and so on are up to date, because a lot of the manufacturers of this software, they are keeping track of all the threats and vulnerabilities. So the updates that they send to you oftentimes address some of the security vulnerabilities that exist that a lot of the hackers take advantage of. And again, here's that word again, encrypt. A lot of people don't know that you can encrypt your phone, so that even if it's stolen, the data that's on it, people can't get that data off unless they have the right authentication keys and so on. And finally, I'm just going to talk about the kind of threats that when you get home, the parents and the children see, and what you should know there. So a lot of what tends to happen at home is you have kids playing online, doing a lot of gaming online. You find that because kids are very quiet when they're online and out of sight of parents and so on, it becomes a useful way to distract kids. But in doing so, you open up your children to the bad elements that are on the internet, and they're there. So you have to be cognizant of that. So cyber predators, the ability to steal the identity in that way, because a lot of kids are not immediately aware of some of the threats that are online. They're very trusting. So one of the things that you have to do is educate them about some of these threats that are online. So again, you want to ensure that they practice, good password hygiene, but more importantly, you want to always monitor and have conversations with your kids about what they're doing online. Sometimes that may be challenging, but you have tools that can help you to do that. And those tools are parental controls that you can install on their devices that will tell you what they're doing online. It will tell you, and even in some cases allow you to control their access online. So it's important to do that. It's important to have that conversation with your kids about the dangers that exist. It's important also to protect identity, and not only identity, name, password, that kind of stuff, but also location. Because one of the things threat actors do is to use online engagement to find out where you live. And kids will sometimes quickly give away that information, and then you get a visit that is, something that you really didn't expect. So you always want to ensure that certain types of very sensitive information is not given out online. And again, that's part of the communication and monitoring of your children online. And finally, again, you always want to use secure Wi-Fi connections. A lot of us, we get services from, you know, Digicel and Flow, and we simply connect to these devices and we assume that those connections are secure. Most times they're not. So again, go and get VPN software installed on your devices and then connect to the internet that way, so that all of your communications are secure in that way. So finally, I just kind of wanted to, hit, my top 10 things to do to stay safe. Keep an updated device. Always make sure that the software that's on your device is up to date. Create long passphrases. If you have a challenge doing that, one of the things that you can adopt is the use of what's called a password manager. So the password manager, what it does, it will generate the passwords for you. And all you need to do is to remember one password to access your vault, and the password manager will remember all your other passwords for you, and even fill out the different interfaces that require username and password for you. All right. A couple of those, LastPass, Dashlane, 1Password. So there are a couple of the tools out there that you can use to do that. Use what's called multi-factor authentication. Now, what that does is, after you enter your password, then it creates another layer of authentication that says, okay, you've entered your password, but we just want to make sure that it's really you. So we're going to send something to your device that you must confirm that it's you. And once you make that confirmation, you can then gain access to the environment that you want to gain access to. Use of VPN, virtual private network software. And this again encrypts your communication whenever you're using wireless, and also encrypt the devices themselves. Whenever you do that, it's very difficult for people who steal your device to then gain access to the data. Back up your data, very important. Also, whenever you get a suspicious email, not only should you delete them, but you should also report them. And who do you report stuff to? Whether you can report it to your IT department, your supervisors, your management, but you can also report incidents to Jamaica CERT, which is the Cyber Incident Response Team, and you can find them online. And also you can, if it's really bad, you can engage law enforcement in the form of police. There is a fully dedicated division in CTOC called the Communications Forensics and Cybercrimes Division, CFCD. And you can engage them, and once you do that, they start to help you to treat with any sort of major event that could happen. So I know that's been an earful, but that's my time, and I think we can probably take some questions. It did get done before 8 o'clock, so that's my time.
All right, indeed, Mr. Forrest. So we do have, two additional questions for you. The first being, is there a cybersecurity initiative, education, or overall policy for schools? I don't know if that is, something you can or you want to, answer for us. You're mute, by the way. Mr. Forrest? Mr. Forrest?
Lost him again?
I think we lost him. Again. Oh Lord. Let's see if it is that we can definitely make contact with Mr. Forrest again. I just want to read, some of the comments that we're seeing in our chat. Of course, you're saying great presentation. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. All right, there's one comment here, and this is from 876 Journeys. And they're saying this would be a wonderful presentation or mini course for the schools, education and awareness. So Andrew, maybe that is something we definitely need to look into. All right, and I'm seeing Raquel Watson here. She's saying, of course, thank you. The public Wi-Fi is the new Jamaica. Mm-hmm. I'm not 100% sure of the protection using it, but, she's saying that she takes Mr. Forrest's advice. And are we still trying to get Mr. Forrest?
He hasn't responded as yet.
He hasn't responded as yet? All right, so, all right. Okay, I'm just going through the chat to see if there are any more comments that we want to, of course, highlight. I think that's it. But Michelle, let me ask you, what is your key takeaway from, our last presentation?
Wow, there's so many takeaways. I know that the information on the cost of cybercrime for me was extremely staggering.
Definitely.
And what was even of more interest is the fact that education is the most targeted area for cybercrime. I never knew that at all.
Right.
But my main takeaway, I guess, were the 10 tips on staying safe online.
Yes.
Those for me are very important. And I agree with you, Mr. CEO, maybe we need to look at the part that e-learning can play in ensuring that our schools are, our schools, our teachers, and our students are staying safe online.
Right.
And ensuring that their systems are robust and can stand up to all of these security threats. So, yes.
Certainly. I'm seeing where Mr. Forrest is saying that he's back on. Do we have him? Okay, Mr. Forrest, are you hearing me, sir?
That our schools are, our schools, our teachers, and our students.
He's gone?
He's gone again.
He's gone again? All right, so we're going to, definitely see how best we can, take your questions to Mr. Forrest, and of course, definitely highlight or note, the answers to your questions in the chat in the days to come. Yes, Michelle, but I do agree with you though, pertaining to the data that Mr. Forrest, mentioned earlier in the presentation, quite alarming. And also, just to remind us before, we take the vote of thanks from Michelle, ways in which we can protect ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, from the presentation: good passwords and privacy hygiene. That's one way. Mm-hmm. Monitor and communicate, and definitely monitor and communicate with your children, of course. Protect identity and location. So, of course, we want to be careful or be mindful when it is that we're using our devices, in public areas, and use secure Wi-Fi connections. And utilize parental controls. That definitely is one that is very, very, very important. And with that being said, I'm going to ask Michelle to move the vote of thanks for us, please. All right, Michelle?
Sure. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this evening's forum. Education, technology, inspire, integrate, and transform. And I would like to thank everyone who played a very special and important part in making this happen. Firstly, Dr. Dice and his team, thank you so much for this collaboration and for your hard work and commitment in ensuring that this evening was a success. We look forward to working with you, of course, as we plan our second forum for March 2023. So, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for that. To our speakers, Dr. Barker, Mr. Christopher, and Mr. Forrest, we would like to thank you for your very enlightening presentations. Dr. Barker, you spoke to us on how school leaders might harness technology to lead effectively. And you gave us strategies for dealing with that inbox overload. And I know the email silencing and the snoozing sounds very good to me. Maybe we can look at implementing some of those strategies within e-learning. And of course, my 2023 resolution, top of the list, is the zero inbox. So that's my 2023 resolution. Mr. Christopher, well, thank you so much in letting us know how accurate research and the resulting data should be so that we can make more informed and, of course, more accurate decisions I did hear you mention about student internships. I don't know if anybody else heard that, but certainly that stood out to me. But I do agree that very accurate data is what is going to help us to, in our decision making, and of course to make the best and most effective decisions. And of course, Mr. Forrest and cybersecurity and educational technology. So thank you for helping us to make that link. And as Kimona and I said before, you know, the cost of cybercrime and education being the most targeted area was really news to me. And so, Mr. Forrest, we do thank you. Mr. Forrest and all the presenters, Mr. Forrest, Mr. Christopher, Dr. Barker, again, we're very appreciative that you took the time to be with us this evening and to share with us all the information that you did share. So our online and in-studio attendees, wow, thank you so much for joining in and for all of your questions. We hope you learned even one thing, just one thing, from each of the presenters. We know you could have spent your evening doing other things or being somewhere else, you know, at the bar having a drink or at the gym or something. And so we are grateful that you chose to spend the time with us. Of course, a great amount of thanks, our CEO, Andrew Lee, Kimona, our moderator, and the other members of the e-learning team who have worked so assiduously over the past couple of weeks to make this evening a success, along with Dr. Dice and his team. We appreciate your effort and commitment in making this happen. And of course, our team from the Jamaica Information Service, JIS, who have made our virtual presence a reality. Thank you for working with us in the promotion and the execution of this evening's event. We do appreciate the time that you have taken, and we deem it a success, can't we, at this point, Kimona? At this point. So again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and stand by for our next event in March 2023. I take this opportunity on behalf of everyone here, the management and staff of eLearning Jamaica, to wish you and your families a wonderful and peaceful holiday season. All right, before we go, Michelle, I know Dres is going to have me for this one, but please, we do apologize. We are just going to close out the forum, and we're going to go to Dr. Dice on Teams, and he has a video that he wants to play from UJA, and we're just going to close out this forum with that video. But you know, of course, you know, let me just say I share the same sentiments as that of Michelle, and we want to thank you all so much for making, you know, this forum what it has been. Okay, so Dr. Dice, are you there? You're mute, Dr. Dice, so we're not able to hear. Yes, to share sound.
Tri-State area. The Union of Jamaican Alumni Associations USA, Inc., UJA, founded in 1990, is an umbrella organization of 60 alumni associations of primary, secondary, and tertiary schools in Jamaica. We are based in the New York tri-state area, but have members across the United States.
Our mission is to promote academic excellence at all levels of schools in Jamaica and to do together those projects that benefit our students in Jamaica and the USA that we cannot do alone. In Jamaica, we have built a basic school in Cousins Cove, Hanover, that opened in 2002, supported Operation Restoration Christian School in Trenchtown, Kingston, for the past 25 plus years.
supported robotics programs for our high school students both in Jamaica and around the globe, and starting in 2006, provided over 250 water tanks to infant, basic, and primary schools across the island.
In the USA, we have hosted our annual High School Graduate Awards program. Over our 30-plus years, we have provided bursaries, books, and/or trips to Jamaica to over 600 students who plan to attend college.
In response to the coronavirus pandemic, we donated laptops and tablets to our schools and collaborated with the Alaska Chin Foundation, the Jamaica Alumni Association of High Schools JAS in Jamaica, and the Alliance of Jamaican Alumni Associations in Canada, AJA, to provide care packages for our students and their families.
Union of Jamaican Alumni Associations USA, Inc., a proud member of Jamaica's diaspora. We believe in the concept of a fist versus fingers. As individual fingers, our impact is limited. Joined together as a hand and ultimately as a fist, our impact can indeed be felt. That is our objective. UJA, promoting excellence in education for Jamaica and Jamaicans through commitment and dedication to collaboration, action, and advocacy. Visit our website at ujausa.org. UJA, join us.